Welcome to The Shed Wireless, a podcast for shedders, hosted by John Paul Young and produced by the Australian Men's Shed Association.
Yeah, there's something for you at the Men's Shed.
Hello and welcome back to the Shed Wireless podcast, made in Australia and distributed all over the world. Here's what we'll be talking about in this episode. Our special guest today is an old mate of mine. We spent 2.5 years together in Jesus Christ Superstar back in Sydney in the 70s at the Capitol Theatre. The one and only Trevor White. In On the Tools, Marty heads to the Crow's Nest Shed in Queensland to check out a surprising addition to their workshop, an upholstery setup. Oh, I've got a couple of jobs for you. Stuart Torrance dives into On the Pulse to talk about sepsis with Dr. Abbenbrook at the George Institute for Global Health. He finds out what it is and how we can reduce the risks. Our shedder in the spotlight comes from the Narooma Shed on the southern coast of New South Wales, and this is a shedder with a difference for a number of reasons. Rip Woodchip is talking about answering that old question, what do you do for a living? Okay, let's get into today's Shed Wireless. Well, here's a man that I shared a stage with 2.5 years. Well, I wasn't on the stage very much. He was never off it. Hello, Trevor White.
John Paul Young, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you, mate?
We did do a few shows together, didn't we?
Yes, I think it was in the region of 700 and something or other. It was quite epic, but, you know, I didn't feel worn out at any stage. You might have. It was pretty tough going for you.
Because you were in the first production, and then you went on with all your hit records and went out on the road and abandoned the rest of us to the second production, which took us to New Zealand and all over the place and back to Australia again. And John English and I were chatting one day, and John said, God, mate, how many shows do you reckon we've done? And then he started to do a calculation, or we kind of did together. And we reckon we did over 2,000 performances of it. We knew the words by that time.
No, you never missed a beat. You never missed a beat. It was fantastic. Both you and John.
And a lot of great people, obviously, in the show. Some went on to great things.
No, you could have walked into a room full of the cast of Superstar and thrown a guitar in the air, and whoever caught it would have been able to entertain you. It was absolutely overflowing with talent. It was marvelous.
A great time, yeah.
But I'm going to talk about something that the people may not know about, and that's your earlier days when the Easy Beats were looking for a new drummer after Snowy Fleet left the band, and you auditioned, didn't you, as a drummer?
And that's what I mean. I was working in a lawyer's office at the time. I mean, it's funny how life changes on the toss of a coin. I mean, for instance, the week before I left school, I had a job lined up with my uncle who had a plumbing business. 3 weeks after that, a family member, or friend of the family, I should say, who worked in a solicitor's office, got me an interview. So I went from being a plumber, almost, to working in a lawyer's office. And of course, in retrospect, I learned a hell of a lot about life in general, working there for nearly 5 years. But I was playing in bands at the weekends, dying to get out of the office environment and just playing music full time. I mean, that was the passion. And so I'd get the weekly trade papers like the Melody Maker and the New Musical Express that would have ads for musicians wanted at the back of the paper. And I'd go along for various auditions from time to time, which was an epic, because I lived about 40 miles from London. We weren't on the telephone at home. You know, very few people were on the phone.
And it was still horse and cart in those days, of course, Trevor.
Of course it was, yeah. That's right. The sick old horse it was. Any appointments or inquiries, you'd have to go down the local phone box. And sometimes I'd phone up some music management office in London with a stack of coins. And if the secretary or receptionist said, "Oh, he's on the phone at the moment, can you hold on?" Sometimes you'd never get to speak to the person because you'd run out of money just holding on.
Yes.
Anyway, this particular time, I did manage to get through to the management of the Easy Beats, and they said, "Yep, we're holding auditions on such and such a date at this nightclub in Leicester Square. So bring your own snare." So I took my snare drum on the train to London, and of course I couldn't afford many records at that time. You save up for weeks to buy a record, but listening to the radio, the Easy Beats Friday on My Mind was huge. So I knew it by ear from that. So natural, and it's quite a tricky song to play. That actually, there's quite a lot to it. Anyway, so I remember clear as yesterday, playing a couple of songs with the band, and they said, "Yep, great, thanks for coming." I remember Stevie clearly. Anyway, some weeks later, I probably hadn't heard for a bit, and then all of a sudden I got a letter from their management saying, "Right, you're in the last 4. We want you to come back on such and such a date." Well, by this time, I thought, oh, it's just another audition that I'm never going to hear from again. And I booked an annual summer holiday with my mates. And it was our first overseas holiday to Italy. We'd paid for it. It was all sorted. And I didn't have the life experience to phone them up and say, "Guys, sorry, I'm away on that date. I'm overseas. What's the chances of coming on another date?" But in the end, I just didn't bother to show up. I mean, that was it. Crazy, in the last 4 for the Easy Beats. But that's something I'll cherish.
Yes, so you had another song in your mind. We're all going on a summer holiday.
That was the one. And what a holiday it was, off to Italy. Yeah, it was great.
Oh, wonderful. So how's your health? Bouncing along okay still?
So how's my health? Well, it's an opportune time. I'm not an expert on many things, but I am an expert on the PSA test.
Oh, yes.
I'm a real expert there. So, and because of former President Biden,
I know. Wasn't that a shocking situation where, he'd been 10 years since he had one?
Well, I mean, I can't believe that someone in that position,
I couldn't either.
And wouldn't you think that a GP would say, "Oh, let's see how your bloods are going,"
Yeah.
But this happens, and so I've thought for a long time. Generally, you have to a degree, you have to be your own doctor. Apropos of, say, even Joe Biden, I was looking up stuff, and for the last few years, I've read a couple of medical people saying, "Oh yes, well the PSA is not that accurate," and I'm going, get out of here. It's a tool in your toolbox, right?
Absolutely it is.
And okay, here's me, and I don't mind who knows it. If my GP hadn't said, "Hey mate, your PSA is getting up there a bit," if I hadn't have done anything, I'd probably be on the way to serious trouble by now.
Right.
It's 5 years. I went to my GP and he said, "You better go and see a urologist." So I said, "Okay, shall I go back and see this guy that did a routine test?" He said, "No, I think you need a young one of the new breed. Go and see this guy." Went to see him. Said, "Right, think we need to do a biopsy." And some medical people said, "Ooh, yeah, biopsy, well, that can have, there's infection risk and all that. But what are you going to do? Not do it,
Yeah.
So when it did the biopsy, he said, "Yep, it's there. You got prostate cancer. It hasn't gone outside the prostate. And these are your options." He said, "You can do this, this, or this." And I said, "Well, I think let's whip it out. He said, well, in that case, you have to see my colleague. He's the man for that. Went to see this guy who totally put my mind at ease. It was just before Christmas, and the previous guy that put me onto him said, I think we'll be doing something immediately. And I said, well, I've planned to go to Canada to see my wife's family at Christmas. He said, don't think you'll be going, mate. Went to see the next fellow who's absolutely brilliant. And he said, look, nothing to worry about. He said, families are really important. Go and enjoy yourself at Christmas. We'll book you in end of January. And his mate, the robot, did all the work.
Hmm?
And here I am, happy to be here. And,
That's great.
but, I mean, ask the medical people, how am I? Go and get all the regular annual checkups that you can do, and don't panic.
Yeah.
Just go with it. And there's some fantastic medical interventions out there these days. It's amazing.
Thank you, Trevor. Thanks for being very candid about that past problem that you had. And, it's been just great talking to you. And I hope you keep on singing. And and I know you're in the garden. So
Lovely stuff. And when are we going fishing?
I haven't been myself.
Next summer.
All right, mate. I'll give you a call.
On the tools. On the Shed Wireless. With John Paul Young.
It's time for On the Tools, so over to you, Marty.
Today I'm at the Crow's Nest Men's Shed in Queensland, probably about an hour north of Toowoomba, I think it is. This is a unique little project. I'm here with Rob, who is from the Crow's Nest Men's Shed. They do a little bit of upholstery work here, which is nice to see. I've heard of it a little bit. I don't think I've actually seen it being done in a shed before. So I just had to have a chat with Rob to ask him about how this came about. G'day, Rob. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks.
That's good, mate. It's a bit chilly up here.
No, it has been cold, yes.
It has been. But, mate, I was delighted to come down here and see that there's a bit of upholstery work happening here. How did this all come about?
Well, it's my sewing machine. I bought it off my boss when I finished my apprenticeship. He was getting rid of it, and I just didn't have the room at home to have it, so I gave it to the shed.
So what was your apprenticeship?
Motor trimmer.
A motor trimmer?
Yeah.
There you go.
Motor trimmer, car
Right.
upholstery and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, brilliant. And so you still had all your gear from doing that?
The sewing machine, yeah, and a few odds and ends.
Yeah. And how did it come about that you started doing it at the shed?
Didn't have the room at home to do it, so I brought the machine here. And
Blokes just brought their old furniture and you started reupholstering it for them, or what?
Yeah. I just brought it here and do whatever. Few of the guys from the shed have been bringing stuff in for me to do for them.
Keep you off the streets?
Keep me from doing work at home.
There you go. Always. Mate, some of it's great. So got a bit of a lounge chair happening here. What other stuff have you done?
I made that to cover the pool table, to keep it clean. I've done a few things. I've got a sulky to redo soon.
A what?
A sulky from the museum.
A sulky? Oh,
Yeah.
sulky. That's like a...
Like a coach type sort of thing, I suppose it is, for the Heritage Museum in town here.
Oh, brilliant. There you go. Wow. So how'd they find out about you that you could do that?
Because Stretch used to work down at the museum.
Yep.
And he was telling them about it, and Ken came up and saw me about it, and I went and had a look at it and that. And
They said, hey there, wait a minute, there's a cheap upholsterer down on the men's shed. Go get on to him.
yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, yeah, mate, this is great. Do any other guys get involved with it with you?
Oh, there's been a couple that's just done a few little chairs, just pull the cover over and staple it for me at the moment.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So you're teaching them a trade.
Well, if they want to keep going at it, they can keep doing it.
Never too old to learn, are you?
Yeah.
So where do you get all the materials from and everything? The guys buy that for you from the shed?
All that stuff down there, that stuff, that was all bought by the shed.
Yeah.
We bought a heap of it some time back, end of stock stuff.
Yep.
It's supposed to be waterproof, acid proof, and all that sort of stuff. So they told me.
Yeah, right.
But who knows?
So how long were you in the trade for?
Well, I'd done a 4-year apprenticeship.
Yeah.
I got out of it for probably 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
I had my own business for a little while with my two brother-in-laws,
Yeah.
but I had to close that down because I had to have my arm back in plaster.
Yeah, righto.
So that was the end of that.
Yeah.
And then I just used to do odds and ends stuff at home
Yep.
in the meantime. And
Not something we see every day. I'm very surprised to see it, and good to see the old trades aren't dying, isn't it? Yeah. Good on you, mate.
well, when I moved up here from Brisbane, I put it all in me at home. I didn't have a machine. I sold it to a motor trimmer down in Brisbane.
Yeah.
And when I found I had room up here, he wanted to get rid of it, so he sold it back to me.
Well, keep up the good work, and I'll bring you some furniture, and you can cheap. How much you charge?
I don't want to all these projects first. I got a heap of them here to do.
Just put them to the side. I'll come first. Good on you, mate. Thanks for having us. Thanks for the chat.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Good on you, mate.
Okay,
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Marty. Great to hear about all the different kinds of things shedders get up to all around this big country of ours. We acknowledge the Jarawir, Garumga and Dalla peoples as traditional owners of the land where Crow's Nest is located. On the Pulse, on the Shed Wireless.
Thanks, JPY, and welcome everyone to On the Pulse, where we discuss anything and everything about health and well-being. With over 55,000 cases each year and having the responsibility of 8,700 deaths each year, I think we should look into the issue of sepsis. Our guest today is Dr. Brett Abbenbrook from Sepsis Australia. He has over 40 years' experience working in critical care and emergency with extensive international experience in establishing cardiac, surgical and clinical care services in China, Croatia, Indonesia, Nepal and Vanuatu. Welcome, Brett.
Thank you very much. Great to have this opportunity to be able to provide some information and awareness about sepsis.
Brett, I've heard of sepsis. I was surprised to learn it was the number one cause of hospital deaths. What exactly is sepsis and how does it happen?
We have infections which are bacterial, viral or other. So you can have, the flu or you can have a cold or a wound infection or something like that. And normally the body becomes inflamed and it does that to protect itself and to kill the bug and to recover. In sepsis, that process is disorganized. So in other words, there's nothing mediating it. So the body continues to pump out inflammatory products to try to kill the bug. But because there's no way to sort of limit that, it begins to then attack its own organs. And because of that, you go into organ failure. And that means that eventually the body will shut down, which is what can lead to people losing limbs, going to organ failure and potentially death. So in a nutshell, sepsis is the body's overreaction to an infection, and it can be from any infection. And I just wanted to mention that some of the numbers you mentioned before, 55,000 cases and 8,700 deaths, are all from around about 2017-18. A lot of those estimates were based on sort of work done out of a global program, because it's one of the big challenges with sepsis is it's very hard to diagnose and document. So how much we understand about it is not great. And in fact, latest numbers, which will probably come out the next month or two, show in fact the burden of sepsis in terms of number of cases and deaths is 3 times what we thought it was.
So with it being the number one cause of hospital deaths, should we stay away from hospitals? I mean, can anyone get sepsis or are certain people more at risk?
Everybody can get sepsis, but for some reason, and this is something we don't understand, genetically, some people's immune systems are just that much more sensitive to the infection, so that when the immune system stomps up to protect the body, it then, in some people that regulation is lost. There's a lot of research happening now in the background to find out what are the triggers for that to try and mediate those, but we're still a long way off. Mm-hmm. In terms of avoiding hospital, I think we should all avoid hospital where possible, but there's definitely, reasons to be in hospital, and hospitals actually provide great care. But the problem is that they are a concentrated area of sick people. And when you have a concentrated area of sick people, then you're more exposed to various bugs and things. And they have lots of processes to try to reduce that.
Can I get a cut in my backyard, in my workshop, and sepsis occur?
Yes.
It's not necessarily only in hospitals, is what I was trying to get at. Sure. You can get sepsis from any injury or illness.
That's correct. And so 80% of sepsis arises in the community.
Right.
And
Okay.
so some examples of that are we have people with lived experience of sepsis, for example, that suffered sepsis from a puppy scratch to the back of their leg. We recently interviewed an AFL star from the Giants, Greater Western Sydney Giants, who had a blister on his foot that became cellulitic and turned into sepsis, and it took him 3 years to get back on the field.
How quickly do you need to react if you suspect sepsis?
So one of the issues with sepsis is there's no clear sign or symptom that you would say that person's septic. So in stroke or heart disease, for example, in stroke you probably have, some paralysis or headache, and in heart, you often have chest pain. It goes down your arm. In sepsis, it's a combination of multiple signs and symptoms, which is why it's difficult to diagnose. So what we say to people is that if you're feeling unwell and you think it might be a flu or a gastro thing, or you've got a cut on your leg that looks a bit inflamed, you might be a bit feverish, your heart rate might be up a little bit, you might be breathing a bit fast, and you might feel a bit confused and lethargic and things like that. But if you're concerned that that's not getting any better and it feels worse than you've had before, so we've all had a flu or a cold, but sometimes they really knock you for a six. And if you have all of those things happening at the same time it doesn't have to really be a lot of dramatic change, then it's probably a good idea to either get some advice if you're sort of just concerned but you're not too worried, or to actually get some help, and that is get to an emergency department or to a GP, but preferably an emergency department as soon as possible, or an urgent care centre. If you get there and you ask the question, you say, I'm really worried, I'm unwell, I'm not sure what it is, or my child is unwell in particular, because parental concern for children is one of the highest sensitive indicators of somebody being really sick, a child. And just say, could it be sepsis, to start the conversation? And that will usually trigger the clinician to think, I'm going to put them on a sepsis pathway, which begins to create a whole lot of different tasks which happen very rapidly. The main issue that we want is that if somebody is suspected of sepsis, that they get an IV antibiotic within the first 60 minutes if possible. Across the country in Australia, there's been some real leaders in sepsis in terms of the work done locally, and particularly in New South Wales and Queensland, but increasingly in Victoria, other states as well. And one of the key drivers of that is in 2022-23, we managed to have released what they call a sepsis clinical care standard.
Right.
And so that's a standard of care that all the hospitals are held to in terms of what they have to have in place. And one of the key things of that is called a sepsis pathway. And that sepsis pathway is a tool which drives a lot of activities very quickly. So if someone says, I'm not sure about this patient, but potentially they could have sepsis, straight away they should implement the pathway. And then that says, right, do this, do that, escalate this to the senior person, contact this person, take this test.
Right.
And all of that means it all happens very rapidly.
Yep.
Now, in some cases, it won't be sepsis, and that's actually fine. And, as you know, people are very worried about giving too many antibiotics these days, and that's a very legitimate concern.
Yeah.
But what research has shown that is if people do actually intervene with antibiotics in potential sepsis, but they have a process in place where they manage the antibiotic, they don't just leave the patient on it if they don't need it, but they actually de-escalate or they make it more accurate. It actually shows there's less antibiotics used and less resistance occurring, but you're actually capturing those patients that are septic.
What can we do personally to prevent ourselves getting sepsis?
Because sepsis is triggered by infection, so just going back to that to say it's the body's overreaction to infection, it's not actually the infection itself. A couple of things you can do. You can reduce the chance of getting an infection. So obviously just normal hygiene measures, things like that, but also appropriate vaccination, which is needed at times, flu season, other things, clean environment, good nutrition, things like that just keep people more healthy and their body responds better to fight infection when it happens. And otherwise, when they come to us and what the antibiotic does is actually break the cycle of the, this sort of cyclic inflammatory process. The two phases are, one, prevent it through getting an infection, or if you do get an infection, get it treated quickly. And the time period, it's time critical. So the time period is essential in preventing sepsis from progressing.
To prevent sepsis, what you're saying is look after yourself overall.
That's right. I mean, anything that's going to strengthen your immune system, which is anything from good mental health, being socially connected, being physically active and having a good diet and a safe environment, like a clean environment, all of that will put you in better stead for either not contracting an infection or making your body react appropriately to that infection. There will always be people that will develop sepsis because of their genetic immune makeup. And, you know, we will over time, you know, conquer that particular challenge. Sepsis now is where cancer was 20 years ago in terms of treatments and managing, you know, complex cancers. And so I guess for us, the biggest challenge is we don't have any funding for our program, so we're trying to convince government that if they invest in us a little bit, they're going to get a massive benefit, not only economically, but for actual survivors and families and prevention. So that's sort of, you know, that's our challenge going forward.
Dr. Brett Addenbrook, thank you very much for being on the Pulse today and letting us know a little bit more about Sepsis Australia and sepsis itself. We really much appreciate your input.
No, you're very welcome. And I'd just like to say to your listeners, please, if you're unwell and you're worried and you're concerned, go to our website, get some advice. Health Direct is a national advisory line to get some advice as well. But if you're really concerned, just make the call to an ambulance or get to an emergency department and always ask the question, could it be sepsis?
Dr. Brent Addenbrook, thank you very much for being with us today. Take care.
You're very welcome. Thanks so much.
Well, there certainly was some great information there about sepsis. So I think the answer is just be careful. Next up, Marty Least is down in the south coast of New South Wales at the Narooma Shed.
Shedder in the spotlight. Let's find out who the spotlight is on today.
Thanks, JP. I'm down at the Narooma Men's Shed, southeast coast of Australia. Beautiful, beautiful part of the world. And I've come to the Narooma Men's Shed because I've just heard a lot of things about it in passing, and I thought I've got to come and have a look at this place. It's really unique in so many different ways, and I'm so impressed with this shed. It's unique in many ways, and one of them is that they're open 5 days a week, but I think 2 of those days are men's shed days, and 3 of those days are community shed days, which means they're open to male and female members, and it just works beautifully, just harmoniously, and it's just a great template. Any sheds out there think, oh, you know, do we have female members or anything? But this shed's got it sorted, and it works mutually beneficial way for everyone involved. But that's another topic. There's another person in particular that I'm going to talk to today is right next to me right now, and we've had a great conversation, and I thought, I've got to interview this person for our podcast. Grover. Now, Grover, thanks for sitting down with me today. Lovely to have a chat. We've been chatting for a while. It's been lovely to have a chat with you. First, I've got to ask, Grover, what is behind the name Grover?
It was what my dad wanted to call me when I was born. I think he made the mistake of singing Rainbow Connection from the old Muppets movie.
That's Kermit, not Grover. You're lucky you didn't get called Kermit.
I'm lucky. Well, no, he sang that I think he sang that at a high school talent show or something, and he copped the nickname Kermit as a kid. And it was, you know, it was all a bit of a joke when I came along as the firstborn. You know, Mum was trying to discuss baby names, and Dad was, Grover.
So it is your birth name?
It's not.
It's not,
My mum and both grandmas vetoed it because it was an absolutely crap name for a little baby girl, as they knew me at the time. Yeah. And they were right. Yeah. But I think I really grew into it.
Yeah. You embrace that sort of thing. It's an affectionate name, isn't it? Yeah.
It is, and it was always a joke growing up. Oh God, don't listen to your father. He wanted to name you Grover.
Yeah.
You know, so it was always sort of around. And as I grew up, Rachel, which was my birth name, didn't really feel like
That's boring.
Rachel. Don't tell that to Rachel inside.
Oh, sorry.
I'm going to dob on you. No, it just didn't feel like it suited me, especially as I realised, you know, I went through all these, I'm a tomboy, I'm this and that, and I, you know, eventually came to realise, like, I don't identify as a woman at all. I'm non-binary, and Grover just felt right to me. Like, it brought a tear to my eye. I had a friend who was like, do you want me to try calling you Grover? And it just brought a tear to my eye at the end of the day. She was like, how did that feel? It's like, it felt really great. It felt like it fitted me.
There you go. The reason I wanted to interview you is because you are unique to the men's shed world, I guess, in a few different ways. You're young. Mm-hmm. So can I ask how old you are?
I'm Coming on 32.
32. That's pretty young for a men's shed member.
Pretty young.
Yeah. Well, I think so. You have a disability.
Yep.
We'll get into that a little bit longer. And you identify as non-binary.
Yep.
Can you explain for me, like I said, I'm ignorant. I'm probably, a lot of us are ignorant out there. Can you please explain to me what that means?
Absolutely. So it means that I don't identify with what it means to be either a man or a woman. Like, biological sex and gender are two separate things. Like, if you woke up in an ice bath tomorrow and someone had surgically altered you so that you looked like a woman or you looked like anything else, you'd still know you were a man. You'd still know who you were inside, and you could feel that. And sometimes, for some people, and it's always been the case in every culture, and it's sort of a modern Western thing for it to be considered weird at all, but some people, that sense of self-identity about who you are just doesn't match up with the bits you were born with.
Yeah.
Universally, people are happier once they work that out about themselves.
Yeah. Was that a process for you?
I think you always think your experience is universal, that the way that you're seeing the world is the same way everyone else sees it, know? And sometimes it takes a while to figure out that's not the way. Like, I can remember one time in as early as primary school, like I saw an ad on television and it was like a Dove soap ad or something. It was, women's bodies and that they're beautiful and all bodies are beautiful. They had all shapes and sizes and colours and ages. And they had a woman there who'd had a double mastectomy.
Yeah.
And as a little kid, I said, well, I mean, at least that's one upside of having breast cancer is that you have your boobs removed. And Mum looked at me with horror and said, can you not say really messed up things for no reason, please? Because to Mum and to anyone who is a breast cancer survivor, that is not an upside.
Yeah.
But I genuinely didn't realise that. Like, even to me, that young, my idea of who I was did not match the body I was born in.
Wow.
And that young, I knew, wow, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice to not have those feminine, female characteristics? Which doesn't. It took me much longer. I think I was well and truly an adult before I sort of worked out, in high school, it's like, oh, I don't like makeup, I don't like pink, I don't like all that girly stuff. Girls suck, all my mates are guys, and all my mates have always been guys, but it wasn't that girls sucked. Girls are great, and pink's actually my favourite colour.
Yeah.
It's just that I was trying to escape something and didn't know how to.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Wow.
And now I just get to be authentically me, and it's a non-issue, and I get to wear pink, and I can wear a dress if I want, and I can wear pants if I want, and I can...
You're sitting here in overalls and a flannelette shirt, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's something intrinsically you've known from the moment you were born, I guess.
I think when I was young, I didn't have a concept of it, and I thought that the way I felt was just the way girls feel, and then I started to, things get more and more gendered as you grow up.
You put a child down, a baby down, and then you put a doll in one corner and a toy truck in another. Generally, I think they say that the boy will gravitate to the truck and the girl will gravitate to the doll, but then some don't gravitate to either, or vice versa.
I think
it's just.
I think that's true for babies that are exposed to certain toys at certain times. They've done studies on children where they measure how steep an incline they can go on, how far the babies can crawl before they're picked up, and from birth, all babies can crawl the same. They've all got the same sort of physical characteristics. They're all as capable as each other. And they were measuring, why is it that once they reach toddler, the girls are showing less physical strength and capability?
Yeah.
And what they discovered accidentally in this study is that the parents pick them up. The parents' estimation of what the child is capable of makes the parent oop, no, you can't climb on that, you will fall.
Gotcha.
And for the parents that were stopped from doing that, the kids developed equally. And so
I think I had Spidey powers until my parents stopped me climbing walls.
Oh, I thought when I got a new pair of joggers I could go faster. It's, I don't know. I think the takeaway is that your biological sex is your biological sex. You're born with what you've got. I mean, a lot more people than you think are biologically intersex. They don't have the same genitals as anyone, or maybe exteriorly they do, but not interior. Maybe maybe they've got features but not hormones, or
Governing clothes, you don't know. It's just all. It's a
1 in 100 people do not fit our definition of biological sex. There are going to be many men at many men's sheds who do not have XX chromosomes, and it's not an issue. And and there are going to be men who have intersex genitals even. And a lot of the time it's corrected at birth. Well, they say corrected. There's now debate on that, because it's like, well, some people do then grow up and they're like, whoa, hang on, but you corrected me the wrong way. You made me a boy, I'm a girl. You know, so there's now discussion about what's better, whether you let children develop and make that choice, or do you hope you get it right and you know.
Wow.
It's a really, really nuanced, difficult topic. But in the least sort of like horror movie way possible, they walk amongst us.
It's so true. It's so true.
It really is.
Your disability, what do you have? I see you had a walking stick.
I've got a variety of I've had chronic pain for a long time, since I was about 12. Fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue. I'm still in the works diagnosing a few things, rheumatoid arthritis and something called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is, at its best, it makes you a little bit too bendy because you have a little bit too much stretch in all your...
I want some of that.
Yeah.
I want to be a bit more bendy and stretchy.
But not in ways where you accidentally dislocate your... Like, I've got a mate with EDS, and she's currently got shattered bones in both her feet from walking. Like she's...
Okay, all right. I don't want to go that far. I want to be able to touch my toes, pretty much.
And at its worst... it's not just your joints that are too stretchy, it's also things like your arteries and your veins and your heart muscle. So if you're not careful, your organs or your heart can rupture, or in my case, you bend over to tie your shoes and all your veins don't maintain your blood pressure properly.
Oh my God.
And so you have a sudden blood pressure drop and you pass out and things. So the stick is my anti-embarrassing myself policy. And dysautonomia. So my brain doesn't regulate my blood pressure and temperature and things properly. So I don't cope well with being in the heat. Like, you just... My IQ drops by like 90% of it. Like, it's just fatigue, this brain fog, and this, so it's tricky. I'm in a high degree of pain a lot of the time. You wouldn't know it. But I've spent most of this morning in enough pain to make me feel nauseous. And you wouldn't be able to tell having a chat to me. But and I struggle with certain things, you know, exertion and things like that. I went down the pool this morning and I did lots of waddling back and forth and doing that, and I look very able-bodied. I look like, you know,
but you're pushing
just a 30-year-old. But you know, yesterday at the muster, when the local health service came and got us to do a few stretches to sort of show us some anti-fall measures and stuff, the 70-year-old bloke next to me was no worries, and I was like wheezing, pulling myself up on my walking stick, you know. So
you're living with and you're working with, and
and so I'm, you know, I was a genetic engineer. I've run an acclaimed animal shelter for a decade. I'm a really sort of engaged, motivated person, but I'm now on full-time disability. I guess if there is an upside to anything, I get to come to the shed.
That's great. So that's my next question, I guess, is what brought you to the shed? How did you get introduced to the shed, and what encouraged you to come here?
I think initially it was the facilities. I think like a lot of people, I come in the door wanting to do a thing, like, oh, awesome, they've got a drop saw and a laser cutter and I can learn this, and I've always wanted to learn wood turning. I got to play with a lathe, you know, I want to do this and that, and I knew of the men's shed as like a men's mental health space. I just moved back home here to Naruma after living away in Brizzy for a long time, and I had a lot of free time. And I was looking for something to do, and I said, wonderful, I can go and learn woodworking, I can go and learn all these things. I love picking up new skills and playing with things and seeing what I can do. And I heard through community that the shed had opened to women, and I thought, well, okay, I'll go down and give it a go. And then you find out what the shed's really about. Like, you know, come for the things that pull you in, the facilities, and stay for the camaraderie and the
that's
mateships.
What keeps you here, and that's what you find.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
It's wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of pushback from any of the guys from the shed when you joined up, or confusion?
No.
I mean, like,
it's been a complete non-issue, and I think part of the reason for that is that I took a really deliberate approach. I didn't walk in the door and say, "G'day, my name's Grover, my pronouns are they, them, and now you got to learn what that means and you get to talk about my gender identity." I said, "Hi, g'day, I'm Grover, you can call me Grove for short. I'd love to learn how to use the lathe. I know it's great to educate and to advocate and to do things like today. You've sought me out to have that conversation, and it's a conversation that I'm so happy and grateful to have." But I knew of men's sheds as a really important place for men's mental health. We can talk about male privilege in the world in general or whatever, but when you look at the suicide statistics in Australia, and 7 out of 9 of them are men, you really, really can't say that men have got it all great and all worked out, and men's sheds are... Like, I already believed in the concept of what a men's shed was, and coming into Naruma, where 2 out of the 3 days it's men's shed, a men's space, which I think is so important. Like, there's so many women-only spaces, there's so many queer support spaces, there's so many... Everyone deserves and needs a space, and I'm so glad that the men still have that some days. But then there's the community days, and so I thought, I am coming into a space where I'm anticipating a demographic of men who have probably got no friends on the transgender sort of umbrella, who I'm probably going to be one of the only visibly disabled younger people anyway. Like, I'm walking in with short hair and a nose piercing. Like, I'm already pushing the boundaries. I can be myself, and I can be my cheery self, and I can refer to myself as they, and I don't say, "Oh, I'm one of the girls," I say, "I'm one of the sheddies." But when Curly comes over and gives me a hug and says, "You're my best girl, Grover, I love you," I'll be Curly's best girl any day.
Just awesome.
Like,
wow.
Yeah, so it was a non-issue, and it's not been a secret, but it's come up organically. And when it comes up organically, everyone's learned to love me for me, and I love them, and I've never hidden it. And when it's come up, like, one of the ladies volunteered at a drag queen sort of training camp up in the Sunny Coast. She came back, she was talking about all of this, and I said, "Yeah, you know, I this and that, and I you know, have a bit of lived experience, you know, and oh, you know, if I could get top surgery, you know, I'd do so in a flash." And they were curious, and they said, you know, it's like, look, they said, "Well, what do you prefer?" I said, "Look, they and them." Like, you know, what everybody else thinks of me is, you know, people see me in the street, they might think I'm a girl, that's whatever. Like, that's fine, but, you know, this is what I prefer. I'm not offended either way, because it's not done with malice. If it was done with malice, that's different, but that's malice. And it's like, for the ladies especially, it's like, well, do you want me to correct you when you do get it wrong, and you can practice that skill on me as sort of a safe gateway trans friend? And some of them said yes, and some of them said no, I'll just do my best, and that's just that. And I said, that's fine. And for the fellas, that's an uncomfortable conversation to have, and some of them are aware of that, some of it sort of overhear that conversation happening and sort of, but I get along great with all the guys here. It's a non-issue. If they want to learn more about it, they're welcome to, but I see it as irrelevant.
And I think they do too. I mean, you are obviously, just talking to the members here, you're one of the most beloved members of the shed. They do. They love you, and they embrace you as, you know, for everything, like everything you represent in this shed as a member, as a younger member, as a member with a disability, as a non-binary, and just a member. You're just one of the guys.
One of the sheddies.
One of the guys. All the girls, even the girls are one of the guys. You know what I mean? You know, it's so good.
Guys.
It's fantastic.
It is. I think that's what inclusivity means. I know that there are people who, you know, especially people who are very, like, maybe other trans people would see this and say, you shouldn't have to make yourself smaller. You should be loud and proud about your identity and about this and that. I think there's a time and a place. I think that in this space, this is what true inclusivity looks like. And look, like support part of the org are curious. Like, this is inclusivity. This is, I don't want it to be a political debate. I don't want to, you know, have to try and like fight to be recognised as a non-binary member of this shed.
I just want to be me.
I'm just a sheddy. And everyone's cool with that, and I love it. It's so beautiful. I'm so grateful for my shed and all the sheddies, and like, there's probably guys at the shed that heard, you know, talking about the shed and say, you know, we've got young disabled transgender members, and say, what?
Well,
who's the trans?
And you know what? It's just, I guess there's just ignorance. There's a little bit of ignorance. There's just people aren't educated, or they just don't know, or there's questions. And
Well, that's
and
the
just
thing.
like even myself, I've loved just meeting you and having conversation with you and being able to speak to someone openly and just educate me. You know what I mean? And hopefully by this little conversation, you know, we might educate a few other people out there. And you know,
Well, that's the thing. I said to Liz yesterday because Liz asked, she said, can I bring this up? Because our shed is truly inclusive of our broader population. Like, we have a lot of different demographics represented here. I'd love to point that out. I feel like it would be good. And I said, please do. And if any of the guys say, what do you mean we've got members? I thought, you know, so you're welcome to say it. It's Grove. Grover is non-binary, not actually a girl.
Yeah.
If you want to talk to them about it, they're happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I don't think any of the guys are going to be bothered by it. Like,
No.
I think, yeah, if anyone doesn't know, it's just because it hasn't come up, because it's not been relevant.
No, that's great. That's fantastic. All right. Well, look, I could talk to you all day. We've had a good chat. I'm very appreciative of the fact we had a good chat before we even started recording.
Yeah.
But thank you so much.
You're
and
so welcome.
it has been an absolute pleasure meeting you, and just coming to the shed. I'm just blown away. I love the area. Love everything. It's just beautiful.
It's an amazing shed. We're so lucky to have it. Thank you for the interview. Thank you for being a sheddy, being curious and
Lovely.
being friendly.
Thanks so much. All right. Back to you, JPY.
Many of our listeners are glad to be retired, while some of us weren't given much choice. But either way, what do you say when people ask you, so what do you do? It may feel like a bit of an awkward question. Now let's see what Rip Woodchip has to say on the subject.
G'day, Shutters, Rip Woodchip here. How you all going today? Now, I just want to have a quiet word about something a bit personal. Something that hits a lot of blokes harder than we like to admit. It's that question. So, what do you do for a living? Or more so, what did you do for a living? And suddenly, after decades of knowing exactly how to answer it, you're stuck. Because for most of our lives, we've tied who we are to what we do. We were boilermakers, truckies, engineers, teachers, sparkies, public servants, you name it. And we didn't just do the job, we were the job. Work gave us a structure, it gave us a purpose, respect, and it told the world and ourselves where we fit. But then, retirement comes along. The alarm clock stops ringing, the phone doesn't buzz, the pay stops landing in the bank, and slowly, quietly, something else happens. You start wondering who you are without the title. You're no longer the boss, or the bloke who keeps things running. You don't get the nod from the apprentices, or the pat on the back of a Friday knockoff. And, for a lot of fellas, that loss of identity sneaks in under the radar. You might not even realise it's happening, until one day, you feel a bit, invisible. A bit like you stepped off the edge of something. I've spoken to fellas who've said, I felt like I didn't matter anymore. One bloke said to me, without the job, I wasn't sure what use I was anymore. And that right there, that's why sheds matter. Because in a world that can make older blokes feel like they're on the scrap heap, the shed says, you still matter, you still belong, and you've still got something to give. Here, you're not retired, you're repurposed. You're the welder, the woodworker, the joker, that's me, the listener, the mentor, the learner, the bloke who knows how to fix a lawnmower, or how just to fix a bad day. You're still you, still full of knowledge, stories, experience, and now you've got the time to share it. Some shedders are even sharing their knowledge with the younger fellas at the schools and helping them out too. Others are making things for kids who need it, or selling stuff for charities who need a bit of support. And let me tell you, who you are now might even be more valuable than who you used to be. So, if you're listening, fellas, and feeling a bit wobbly in the identity department, just know you're not alone. Every bloke hits these crossroads, but you don't have to navigate it solo. Get to the shed, grab a cuppa, pick up a project, and have a laugh. Because no one's asking what you do here, they're just glad you're around. All right, that's enough soul searching for one episode. I'll let you get back to the sawdust and scones. Catch you next time, fellas. See ya!
Well, we hope you've enjoyed our episode today. As always, drop me an email to theshedwireless@menshed.net if you know a shedder you reckon we should have a chat to or a topic we should have a yarn about. The Shed Wireless is produced by the Australian Men's Shed Association, made in Australia and distributed all over the world for the love of shedding.
It don't matter if you work with wood or fabricating metal is the thing you understood. Whatever is your game, everyone's the same. Yeah, we can do it all at the Men's Shed. Short, fat, tall, skinny, hairy, bald. In the shed, it's welcome one and all. Share the skills you know, we're all having a go.